Okay, this is CAD Methods, Lab 1.1, Part 2, Exercise 5-11 through Exercise 5-14. And it starts right here on page 201 in your book. Number 1, start using the AutoCAD DWT. So in the template, just like always, and we haven't changed to use a different template, so it's going to keep using that one. Start a new drawing. Okay, so down here, it's going to talk about object snaps on number 4. And object snap settings and then the drafting settings. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the D settings. Come over here to AutoCAD, D settings. So we come into our drafting settings and I'm going to turn my snap on. And because these are all 1/2 inch over here, nothing goes to a 1/4 inch or less, so I'm going to leave this at 1/2 inch. I'm going to leave my grid at 1/2 inch, and just like always, I'm going to turn display grid on, grid past the limits. That'll give me a nice place to work. So now I'm going to come over here to object snaps. And what the exercise is going to have yet to do is clear all of them. So my object snaps are turned off, and while we're working, we want to use them, we can use the F3 button on the keyboard, top of the keyboard. So we cleared them all, and then we're going to turn on endpoint, midpoint, and intersection. Don't get the intersection confused with the insertion point, because that's different. Or the apparent intersection. That's similar, but it works a little different. These are the 3 we want on, and I'm going to turn those on. I'm going to say OK. So now you can see my 12:9 limits. That's the default in AutoCAD. And I can just zoom in here. And here's where I'm going to work. Now I'm going to use X-line horizontal. That's what the book says. And X-line vertical, because that's what the book says. So what I'm going to do, I can type X-line. And I can tell it. I can either click on this or I can say V. So I'm going to click on it, and it's going to give me a vertical X line, and I'm going to put that directly on that major grid line right there. I can also, if you're looking for the X line in the ribbon, it's this one right here. It says construction line. So if I click it, I can tell it horizontal, and I can get a horizontal. Now the other way to do that would be to say X line and F8. That turns your ortho on and off, and that'll restrict it to being horizontal or vertical. So let's go back to our book. Whoops, one page too far. It says it's 3.5 inches wide and 3.5 inches tall. So I could find my 3.5 inches and click, and it can be restricted horizontally or vertically. But what it wants us to do is it wants us to say X line. So I'm going to type X line, and I get a choice down here. I want to use this offset. That gives me a distance. What do you want to offset through? I want to offset it through 3.5. So I'm going to come over here, type 3.5, hit enter, pick my line, pick the direction you want it to go. I want it to go this way. Now the other way to do that would be to skip the X-line command and just type offset by itself. Since 3.5 was what I entered last time, it's still entered in down here. So enter, click, click. Now right inside that square, that's where my part's going to be. So just like we did before, I'm going to go trim, enter, enter. And I can just click these lines and make them go away. Or you can click them individually. And that's the start of my part. Now I got this 2 inches. That 2 by 2 there is going to give me this 45-degree line. So watch this. I'm going to say offset 2. Now I'm going to click from the back to the right, and from the bottom to up. Now you can see right there, that's where my line's going to go. So I'm going to say line. And see, I got an endpoint, and I got an endpoint. That's my running object snap. So that's an endpoint. That triangle's a midpoint. I'm going to go from endpoint to endpoint. And then I can select those 2 lines and hit the delete button. There's my part. Trim, enter, enter, and get rid of that. And then that takes you through exercise 11, which takes us to exercise 12. Now, what we're going to pay attention to here are these gray lines. those are the construction lines for orthographic drawing. And these numbers here, that's going to give me the distance for between my views, my top, front, and side. And that's going to be the width of my part, that's 3 inches. So watch this. I'm going to say X line. Oh, gotta click on AutoCAD. There we go, X line. I'm going to say offset 2. And I'm going to pick. That's it. That's all I had to do. And then I'm going to do that again. X line. And I'm going to say offset 3. I'm going to say pick. Now you can see I'm a little outside of my limits. So I'm just going to turn my grid off now because I don't really need it anymore. And I could F9 and so F8 to turn 7 to turn off my grid. F8 turns my ortho on and off, and F9 turns my snap on and off. So I'm going to turn the snap off and ortho on. So now I'm just going to draw some lines from the endpoint up and from the endpoint up. And this will quickly give me my 3 views. Oops, see there, I missed that one. Line. So can you see that? That's my top view. Here's my front. Here's my side. So let's look at those easier. Trim, enter. Delete everything between the views. Here's my side. Here's my front. Here's my top. And all this stuff over here, you can just delete all of it because it's not required. Now these, I can't trim these. Those are whole line segments. You have to have something to trim to. So I'm just going to delete those. Okay. That takes us to this next exercise. This is page 205, number 13. And what they're going to have us do is add an X line right here and right here with an angle. So I have these X lines. And what they want me to do is just that, I think that's the whole lab. Add those 2 lines, 3 lines. So here we go. I'm going to say X line in AutoCAD. I want to say angle. So right here, rather horizontal, vertical, angle. I'm going to say 45 degrees. And I want to put it on that midpoint. That's a good spot. And then I'm going to go back here to show you this. Right here, they tell me the distance between the lines is a 1/2 inch. So I've got a 1 inch diameter hole that's going to go through there. So I'm going to say offset. Distance through is going to be 0.5. And I'm going to go pick. So pick the line and pick the side you want it to go to. And that's it. That takes us to exercise 5-14. So what they want us to do is create this ellipse right here and this ellipse right here. So to do that, we need a lot of lines. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use the line command. So line. So I'm not getting that intersection. See there, I'm getting all kinds of stuff, but I'm not getting the intersection. So I'm going to go to these settings. And I'm going to clear them all and just turn on intersection and see what happens. So now the only running objects that I have turned on is intersection. So I'm going to say line from that intersection. See that X under there? It's kind of hard to see. Click and drag it up. That's it. Oops, missed it. Line from that intersection. Drag it up. Escape. Line from that intersection. Drag it up. Now I'll work on these one at a time. I'm going to draw a line. Now I turned off all my object steps, so I'm going to right click, shift right click, midpoint, from the midpoint, drag it over. And then I know that this is a 1/2 inch offset, so I'm going to give that a 1/2 inch offset 5. Click, click, click where I want, and the side I want it to go. Now right here, this little box, this rectangle right in there, that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to trim, select all of these, and get rid of all of that. I don't need And I don't even need that one. It's not necessary anymore. So now they want us to add this ellipse right here. So I could use the tool. In the ribbon, there's the ellipse command. Or you can just type it, the ellipse. Now with the ellipse, you need to pick a cross. So I need to pick from the midpoint here and then pick a cross. As long as you pick across the rectangle first, it'll work out. If I screw it up and I pick here, now my ellipses, that doesn't make any sense. So let me delete that ellipse. I'm going to shift right click from the midpoint to shift right click to this midpoint. I think I missed, nope, did I miss it? Shift right click to that midpoint. And what just happened? I must have had the cursor in the wrong spots. Let me delete it. You zoom in a little bit. Ellipse from the midpoint. Ellipse from the midpoint here to shift right click to the midpoint here to shift right click to the midpoint there. Then I can just delete these lines. I'll do it again. Line from my intersection. Line, shift right click from the midpoint. And then offset my 0.5, it's still in there. To the left, to the right. And then see my triangle right there. Trim. And just delete the, pick on the things you want to trim. There's my rectangle. Ellipse from the midpoint to the midpoint. Well, now that I have an intersection, I can just use that. And then I can just delete all of that stuff right there. And if we check the book, the last thing it wants us to do is delete all the construction lines. Delete. File, save as. And this is going to be Lab 1, Part 2, Exercise 511 through 514. And put your initials on the end. And again, I'd rather have the DWG when you submit the assignment.